You know, when we think about getting sick, our minds usually jump to the obvious stuff, like a virus, a bad gene, maybe an injury. But what if one of the biggest threats to our long-term health is something quieter? A hidden conflict that's happening inside our own personalities, one that could be silently shaping our physical health without us even knowing it.
It's a pretty powerful question to ask yourself, isn't it? Could there be some kind of chronic, invisible stress that's been building up for years? And what if just identifying it is the first real step to preventing serious disease? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. This fascinating idea that connects who you truly are, your authentic self, directly to your physical well-being.
And this theory, it doesn't come from some sterile lab. It actually comes from decades of lived experience. We're going to look at the story of a health mentor named Elaine Godley, whose own long, hard battle with her health led her to a really surprising conclusion.
I mean, Elaine's journey was anything but easy. At just 22, she was diagnosed with a rare, so-called incurable kidney disease. For more than 2 decades, her life was basically run by medication. But then, in her mid-40s, something changed. She somehow managed to reverse her kidney disease. And on top of that, over the years, she also survived 4 different types of cancer.
Just think about that for a second. 23 years on a constant cycle of rotating antibiotics. I mean, this wasn't just a health issue for her. It was the defining feature of her life for more than 2 decades. And it was this incredibly intense, long-term struggle that really forced her to look way beyond conventional medicine for answers.
So, after all of that, what was her big takeaway? Well, it was pretty radical. She became absolutely convinced that the root cause of all her illnesses wasn't just physical. She believed it was behavioral, the result of a long, slow buildup of invisible, internal stress. But where was all this stress coming from?
And that question leads us to the core idea here. The theory that, really, all of us are living with 2 different versions of ourselves. And the conflict between those 2 selves, well, that's where the trouble starts.
So think about it like this. On one hand, you've got your natural self. This is the you when you're totally relaxed, at home, with people you completely trust. It's your gut instinct, unfiltered personality. But then there's your public self. That's the version of you that shows up at work or in big social situations where you feel like you kinda have to be on. It's an adapted, performance-oriented version of you. Now, the space between these 2 selves is what Elaine Godley calls the authenticity gap. And look, it's not about having a public persona. We all have one. The real issue is the distance between who you truly are and who you feel you have to be. The wider that gap gets, the more energy it takes to keep up the act. And that creates this constant, low-grade, internal stress. And the result of this is something I think a lot of us can really relate to. As Elaine puts it, people come home at the end of the day just completely exhausted. And it's not from the work itself, but from the performance. It's the sheer mental and emotional effort of constantly pretending to be someone you're not. The craziest part? For so many people, this has become so normal they don't even realize they're doing it. Okay, so if this gap is often totally unconscious, how in the world are you supposed to find it? Well, this is where behavioral profiling comes in, not for a job interview, but as a tool for your own personal health discovery. Elaine uses a tool called the DISC model. And get this isn't some new age trend. Its principles actually go all the way back to Hippocrates, the father of medicine, way back in 400 BC. He was one of the first to identify these different core behavioral traits, and the DISC model is basically a modern evolution of that ancient wisdom. The model basically breaks down our behavior into 4 main types: dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. So, a high D type is very direct, gets things done. An I is super sociable and inspirational, an S is supportive and calm, a real team player. And a C is analytical and all about the details. Now, the key thing to remember is that we are all a completely unique blend of these traits. And uncovering your profile is actually way simpler than you'd think. It's basically a short questionnaire, and from that, it generates 2 graphs. One for your natural, instinctive behavior, and another for your public, adapted behavior. The difference between those 2 graphs, that right there, visually represents your authenticity gap. It gives you a crystal clear starting point for making a change. But just finding the gap, that's not the end goal. It's really just the beginning. The real power comes from turning that awareness into an actual plan for getting well. And this is the absolute key to the whole idea. The authenticity gap isn't just some psychological concept, it's a physical one. This constant internal friction basically keeps your body in a low-level fight or flight mode, pumping out stress hormones like cortisol.
And over the long haul, that can hammer your immune system and swing the door wide open for serious disease.
And you can see how this plays out in the real world. In one case study, Elaine profiled a team of 12 accountants. Now, on the surface, everything seemed totally fine. But her analysis showed that 5 of them, that's nearly half the team, were at a super high risk of complete burnout, all because their work personas were just so far removed from their natural personalities.
As she says, this lack of alignment, it doesn't just put you in a bad mood. It has a huge impact on your work, your relationships, your family, and, most critically, your physical health. It's a ripple effect that starts from deep inside and works its way out.
So, what does all of this actually mean for you and me? Well, it suggests that maybe true prevention doesn't start with a new diet or some crazy exercise plan. Maybe it starts with a simple act of self-awareness.
All right, so let's boil this all down. Takeaway number 1, that gap between your true self and your public self creates a hidden, chronic stress. Number 2, over time, this stress can be a major root cause of serious illness. Number 3, tools like the DISC profile can actually make this invisible gap visible. And finally, and this is the most important part, just becoming aware of your gap is the most powerful first step you can take. It allows you to start making small, conscious choices to close that gap day by day.
So really, it all comes down to this one question. It's not about some radical, overnight reinvention of who you are. It's just about being aware. Because asking yourself, where can I be just a little more me today? Well, that could be the most important thing you ever do for your health.